Hi guys, I'm Vitold and I'm so pumped for this one. And if you are in the market for a comfortable, capable and serious motorcycle and you are considering BMW's R1250GS or even the previous R1200GS, you've got to see this. First of all, and there's a reason that I'm starting with this, the balancing of the big GS has always been good, but from 2013 and the LC generation, that's an R1200GS, from that generation and now in R1250GS, it is absolutely brilliant. And I believe that there is no other bike that is as fantastically balanced. And what exactly do I mean by that? Because that's important for you to get it very clearly. Balancing is how easy it is to ride at low speeds, where the little movements and lean left and right cause you to immediately target the ground with your head first and need to support yourselves with your legs, or the bike is very easy to counter and to keep upright. It's how much effort is needed to ride in a straight line as slowly as possible. And R1250GS is an absolute master in it. It really does feel very, very, very light. And hey, BMW did not pay me for saying that. You guys are getting 100% honest reviews from me, and I feel I owe you that. So right, chassis is designed in a way that made it really stiff. Nothing is bending there and nothing surprises you in its movement. So that's why it's so easy to react to bike's movements for the rider. This doesn't mean that the suspension is stiff, it's about how strong the frame and other elements are. So let's not get misunderstood here. Another thing that helps it is its low center of gravity because of the cylinders that are sticking out in a flat position. Their weight is not placed upwards, but more on the sides, which moves GS's center of gravity even lower. That helps a lot too, and that's why no other adventure bike can match it, and I do mean it. However, new multistradas are not that much behind. So the effect is that you can use this GS almost anywhere you want. Off the road, on road, during a trip around the world, on a racetrack, especially now that we're getting the most powerful GS ever. Wet weight, which means weight with all the fluids and 90% of fuel tank, is claimed to be 249 kilograms, but don't you worry, it doesn't really matter. If a 249 kilogram bike falls on you or a 149 kilogram bike, it hurts the same, trust me. And I should also mention that the seat height is adjustable and it will help you find the right position to fit on a bike. This indeed may matter to some of you. You may switch between 85 centimeters of height and 87 centimeters of height. If you're one of shorter riders, you may be happy to know that you might order a lowered seat too. 6 additional centimeters for your crown jewels, and they will thank you later. The seat can also be heated for you so that you can be even more relaxed playing in the mud in front of your office in the city center. All right, let's move on to the second one. And this flat engine means that there is a 2-cylinder boxer engine with 136 horsepower and 143 newton meters and 1,254 cubic centimeters of displacement. Great news is that now you can do this in the second gear. Yay! Now this thing shakes left and right because one cylinder sticks out to the left, which for you would be that way, and the other one sticks to the other way, which would be right, which would be probably that one for you. Yes, because it's left for me. And whatever balancing system BMW keeps adding, it still shakes and it will shake. To make it fair, it's nothing wrong and it's only cool as it makes it feel like the beast is there alive, which it is, especially that GSs seem to be quite reliable in general. And I know that some of them break, and I know that everything sometimes breaks, but generally they are pretty good and trustworthy. So this Boxer has plenty of power and it kind of behaves like a diesel engine in a car. It's really completely different from inline engines and still a lot different even than V-twins. It doesn't like to be revved very high and it doesn't need that to provide you with lots of torque, and I mean lots of torque. Yay! Torque is its really strong point and it's available really low, and I'm not kidding. Just above idling, around 2000 RPM, it's giving you 110 Newton meters. It's like a freaking train. Now don't get me wrong, power delivery is not brutal, because that matters. It's not brutal, it's not rapid, it's not shaky. Oh no, it's not. It is actually very smooth. So, however, there is one problem with all that. And I'll tell you what it is in a second, as this happened to me a few times riding GSs before. And I think you should know about that. And that'll be in a second. Third one, in the meantime, if the GS falls, it is the easiest bike to pick up. Yeah, that is a strong statement, and perhaps I went a little bit too far with it, but there are reasons for me saying that. The easiest bike, of course, the easiest bike would be the one that's the lightest and shortest one, perhaps. But in its category, the GS will always win. So why is that, you ask? And actually, it's rather simple. Those two cylinders on the sides of a GS reach quite far to the sides. And when the bike falls, which at some point will happen anyway, it doesn't fall flat, but stays at an angle. So it's not like boom, like that, but it stays like that, kind of. So you start your deadlifting with having some of the lift already done by the bike, and you don't need to be that much bent, and in the end, your back will thank you for that. Very quickly, I was going to say it's going to thank you later, but it actually is going to thank you immediately. Just beware of one thing. Don't get crazy and excited, because that often ends in flipping the bike on the other side, if you know what I mean. So if you believe in yourself too much, take it easy. Remember that it's not just your pure strength, but the bike already helped you. Don't worry about the engine covers, because they are replaceable, and usually even nothing happens to them, or at least nothing else gets damaged. If you get yourself additional metal crush bars or any other kind of protection, of course it will help even more. And the next thing is that all the latest and greatest technology usually comes first in a GS. And that's great news for all the GS owners, actually for all the future GS owners. And this is a very important bike for BMW. If actually not the most important of them all. And not only because it's the most badass. Well, they need R1250GS to stay on top within its class. And that's why you're getting, for example, adaptive LED front lights that lean into corners along with yourself, helping you see better. There's keyless start that lets you keep your BMW key in your pocket and start the bike just by pressing a button, because it can feel that you have the key. There's adaptive suspension. There's ABS that helps you not kill yourself even in corners. Yeah, I actually believe that KTM was the first to introduce that, but BMW quickly followed. You can completely switch off ABS because this is a adventure bike, enduro bike. There's traction control that you may switch off. There are different riding modes for different conditions if you want the bike to behave in a more, let's call it, suitable way, suitable to the situation. There is hill start control, which helps you start uphill without rolling backwards, a very nice feature that came to motorcycles straight from cars. And there is an immense number of accessories, both from BMW and from all other aftermarket manufacturers. I think GS could be the #1 favorite bike for aftermarket accessories companies. And that wouldn't surprise me. I actually believe that might be true. So the technology is top-notch, and there is every accessory that you can probably dream about, including an Akrapovic exhaust that you can order straight with the bike. So, fifth point. Now let me tell you about GS's unique suspension setup that actually contributes to it being so well balanced and stable. And it's sick how this bike takes corners, and I'm not kidding here. This is an adventure bike, and it's killing it. It is the most enjoyable bike ever to take for twisty roads, ever, period. And this is my opinion, of course, but I'm actually curious, what do you guys think? Please let me know in the comments. And to the point, telelever front suspension is great in on-road riding, and perhaps not the best when riding on soft surfaces like sand dunes. And why is that, you ask? It's because one of the focuses of the engineers was to prevent front suspension from diving too much. That makes a lot of sense. So the construction, which is very original, makes the bike's suspension stay really flat, even if you just come and sit on the bike and try to push the handlebar down with all your weight. It will not let you compress the front suspension much. It's really amazing. You should see for yourselves. However, on sand, when you would prefer it to be soft enough to go over sand bumps instead of just riding through them, this may not be the best setup. Some people tend to complain about it, but I'll tell you this. There are people who rode through the most demanding off-road places on GS bikes, and they have also been going through sands. So I would say that it's probably not that big of a deal, even if you notice that it's a bit more difficult to handle rough, sandy terrains. How much more difficult? Probably not much, but perhaps if I didn't mention it now, you wouldn't notice when riding. Perhaps you will not notice anyway, I hope. In the rear, there's parallel rear suspension with a drive shaft. This is more of a conventional setup, as it's simply a single-sided swing arm with a drive shaft inside. And main competitors from KTM and Ducati don't have that, and instead use chain drive, which you need to replace from time to time, and it's dirty. Ugh. Yeah. So BMW also gives you ESA, which stands for Electronic Suspension Adjustment. So you can make it stiffer and more sporty, or you can make it softer and more comfortable. And you will actually notice the difference. It's a pretty effective system. They've done a really great job with that. I'm kind of proud of them myself, as when riding a GS, this would actually impress me every time. Of course, I would always stay with comfort because that's what I like, but there are differences, and this thing actually works. 6 point, all right. We cannot overlook how the GS looks. And its style is legendary and recognizable from the early beginnings, and it continues to take that path. And of course, it's a matter of taste, if you like that design or not. But if you would ask me, I would say I like it. Yes, I do. I do like its shape, as with that wider frame and badass details, those exposed parts of a frame, a generally sharp design and straight lines, it gives a feeling of a kind of an ugly and strong powerlifter, very strong powerlifter. And also, to me, it looks pretty modern. And that started with R1200GS back in 2013, the LC one. And I have to say that I am not a fan of asymmetrical front end though, and I mean the lights. This is special for BMW brand and the whole GS family, but purely in terms of design, I don't think it is a beauty queen. And maybe it's not, but it's actually the same story as, for example, with a Rolls-Royce Cullinan, which is ugly as hell, and everybody's dreaming about it, including myself. Funny, huh? So we gotta take it as it is, I guess. And anyway, what is certain is that when you see it, you know it is a GS. And even better part of that is that you know it is the biggest GS. I just really don't like replacing good old analog clocks with mechanical needles with a screen. I don't like that. And I would like that in a car, but somehow all these years I didn't like that in motorcycles, and I don't think this is going to change for me. So BMW, please think about it. Number 7. Now I'll tell you what the problem with an engine is, because there is one. I promised you that I'll explain what I meant. So the BMW Boxer engine has this freaking weird characteristics that it's quite easy for it to stall and switch off when you're starting off and want to get moving. And it wouldn't be such a big deal as long as it wouldn't catch people off guard and cause them to fall whenever that would happen. And it does. So I've seen it quite a few times and actually laughed inside of myself at those poor guys. Here's the deal though. It's really freaking surprising, as it's quite rapid. The engine locks itself, so you're not going anywhere anymore. Usually in the first gears that the bike suddenly stops when you actually do expect it to keep accelerating. And you may not have enough time to support yourself, and I admit it happened to me a few times, and every time I actually did manage to save myself, but it was stressful. And this is this Boxer engine specific behavior, and it really needs more throttle to start moving confidently. So don't be afraid to rev it higher for your own good, or otherwise I'll be laughing at you right there. And you don't want that, do you? And I believe it may actually be connected with the next point. And this is the so-called ride-by-wire throttle. This basically means that there's no mechanical connection between the throttle, right here, or right here, as you prefer, looking from your side. So there's no mechanical connection between the throttle and engine, and instead there are sensors that send information to the engine via, guess what? Wires. Ride by wire, right? And I remember that it worked in a weird way when I rode BMW K1600 GT and GTL, both of them. But all those things got much more responsive. So still it may feel a little bit numb to some of us, as the reactions depend also on the riding modes that you choose. So every time it may work a tiny bit differently once you switch the mode. However, it is done on purpose, and otherwise we might have not been able to have these functions at all. So don't get me wrong, it's not worse, but it's different, and now you know how and why it works in this way. Ninth point is about BMW bikes being built in Germany from 1969. Now, for some markets, they are assembled in some other places too, but there's a big chance that if you get your R1250GS in Europe, it was built and assembled in Germany. So that could be one of the reasons why it feels solid and sturdy. Or it doesn't, since there are not so many Germans in Germany anymore. But jokes aside, this is actually really good and deserves, I think, to be mentioned in a completely separate point, because it contributes to the overall feel that you get even sitting on a GS. And look, everything moves in a light and smooth way. Parts don't feel like they are going to fall apart, usually. Alright, I'm kidding. And this may be a case of some other manufacturers, and in R1250GS you will not find that. And you may rip off an indicator, alright, you may do that, but I bet you won't manage to rip off a mirror. Not with your bare hands. And if you try, please let me know how it went, alright? Alright, let's move to the 10th. And the 10th point is quite serious, because this might be the world's favorite bike. And it's BMW's favorite bike because its sales are literally crazy, and it means the company earns loads of money on it, which is fully deserved. This is by many considered to be the best bike in the world, the biggest GS. Some say that we will all end up on a GS. And if we may if we don't die on other bikes first. So in 2019, BMW sold around 60,000 regular R1250GSs and adventure versions together. And that's the largest number of all their bikes sold, and accounts for approximately 30% of all their motorcycle sales. And every year from 2011, they keep selling more and more bikes worldwide. Also, do you remember those two guys who rode around the world twice on motorbikes? Once like this, not fully, but let's say like this. And they did it first on two 1150GS adventures, and then on two R1200GS adventures. And this is one of my favorite stories, I guess. Yeah, I really like it. But anyway, these two guys are Charlie Boorman and a famous actor who likes to get naked in his movies. His name is Ewan McGregor. Yeah, as weird a hobby as it is, still, they took these bikes and they have done it. And guys, have you heard about that? Please let me know if you know what I'm talking about. And from that time, many people have done that too. And this shows how well-rounded the R1250 and its predecessors are. And I hope you guys liked this video and found it useful. And please go ahead and subscribe for more motorcycle videos from me. If you'd like to find out what 8 major problems with R1250GS I have discovered, please check the video that I linked in the description. So far, see ya!